All right, let's dive into a story of agricultural innovation that pretty much changed an entire country's food system. It's a story all about grass, some clever science, and believe me, some seriously powerful machines. So here's the big question. How do you feed a country's cattle when the grass just stops growing? I mean, livestock have to eat 365 days a year, right? But the fields, they don't exactly play along. So what do you do? Well, the answer is something called silage. And how we got here, how it became this absolute cornerstone of modern farming, well, that's a pretty incredible 50-year story. It's a tale of science, it's a tale of steel, and it's about tackling one of nature's biggest puzzles. Okay, so to really understand why this was such a big deal, we've got to go back to the basic issue. Let's just call it the Great Grass Problem. Okay, let's put some numbers on this. In a place like Ireland, the grass is only really growing for about 280 days, but there are 365 days in a year. That leaves a gap of 85 days. That's over 2.5 months where you've got hungry animals and, well, no fresh food growing in the fields. That is the problem that farmers absolutely had to solve. And you know what? They solved it. And that solution kicked off what we now call Ireland's silage boom. It was this huge, massive shift in how they stored food for the winter. They basically left an ancient tradition behind for something way more high-tech. So let's rewind to 1950. Back then, the answer was always hay, just dried grass. And it wasn't just popular, it was king. I mean, get this. For every single field of silage, there were nearly 20 fields of hay. That's how dominant it was. But then, look what happens over the next 50 years. This chart right here, it tells the entire story. The area for hay just nosedives. And at the exact same time, the land used for silage absolutely skyrockets. By 2000, it had completely taken over. We're talking a total revolution. And here's the final score. By the time we hit the year 2000, silage wasn't just some other option. It was the system. It made up a whopping 87% of all the preserved grass in the country. So, how on earth did this change happen so incredibly fast? One word: technology. What we saw was a full-blown harvesting revolution. It was all driven by machines. Machines that made everything faster, way more efficient, and, a whole lot more scientific. And the change was, well, it was night and day. In the then column, you had these small tractor-mounted buck rakes that individual farmers would use. In the now column, you've got these massive, self-propelled precision chop harvesters. The whole thing went from a slow, back-breaking job for one person to a super-fast, high-tech operation run by specialists. And that's a really key point, this shift to specialists. Today, over 80%, think about that, 4 out of every 5 fields are harvested by contractors. These are people who've invested a ton of money in this high-end gear. It's not just a new tool. It's a completely different way of doing business in farming. Okay, so we've got the awesome machines, the steel part of the story. But that's only half of it. The other half is pure science. It's the biology of how you actually preserve all that good stuff in the grass. So what exactly is silage anyway? Honestly, the best way to think about it is pickled grass. Seriously, you're taking fresh grass and you're preserving it using fermentation. It's a way to lock in all those nutrients so they're ready to go months down the road. And this is where the science gets really cool. This table shows you exactly why chopping the grass with those big machines is a game changer. Look at the difference. When you chop it, the pH drops way down, which is good. The lactic acid, that's the stuff you want, goes through the roof. And the butyric acid, which is basically a science spoilage, it drops way off. It's the perfect recipe for preservation. So here's how that whole pickling process actually works. It's pretty straightforward. First, you pack the grass in really tight to squeeze all the air out. Then these good bacteria get to work, eating the plant's sugars and turning them into lactic acid. That acid makes the pH plummet. And that super acidic environment is what pickles the grass, stopping any bad bacteria from growing and locking in all the nutrients. Okay, so we've got machines, we've got science, but why do we care? What's the bottom line? Well, it's simple. Better feed for the animals means better food, better milk and meat for us. And this isn't a new idea. Listen to this quote from all the way back in 1966. It says that even when cattle ate more hay, the gains they got from well-preserved silage were superior.
That's the key right there. It proves it's not just about how much they eat, it's about the quality of what they're eating.
And the difference between good silage and bad silage is just massive. If you get it right, you get amazing feed, which means better milk and meat. But if you get it wrong, you're looking at huge nutrient loss. Animals might eat 56% less of it. It can even make them sick. It's literally the difference between a thriving farm and a failing one.
So, no doubt about it, the silage revolution totally changed the game over the last 50 years. But the work is never done, right? The story's not over. So, what's next? What are the big challenges on the horizon? Well, today it's all about making the process even better. People are working on things like lower cost ways to harvest it. That's the money side. They're also trying to get way better at predicting the actual feeding value of the silage. That's the science. And tying it all together is this constant push to be more efficient with nutrients and, of course, to shrink the environmental impact of the whole operation.
And that kind of leaves us with one big, final question to think about. The last revolution was all about mechanics. It was about steel and horsepower. So as we look ahead, what's going to drive the next one? Will it be about data, maybe biology, or is it something we haven't even thought of yet?